So in the chat, obviously I can't see it right now because I'm in the middle of something else, but throw down what you think of the new news. I think it's new news. We talked about it being something that was going to happen. I thought that it was an obvious for the University of Colorado to go to the Big 12. And I say obvious, meaning that the way that the Pac-12 is sitting for this year, I think that the Pac-12 is a better conference than the Big 12. I'm gonna go ahead and say that when we have everybody in that we've got right now, and especially the talent level that is in this. There we go. Finally got that done. We finally got the quarterback play, and Colorado's finally in the Pac-12 and is going to be a good team this year and actually vying for some prominence in the not only in the conference but also in the country. So at this point, I think the Pac-12 this year will be as strong as, outside of the SEC, probably as strong as any other single conference out there. You know, we could talk about Big Ten, but I honestly think with USC and Colorado and Washington and Oregon and Utah, I mean, those are a lot of big teams. So this year, Pac-12 looks good. Obviously, next year we're going to the Big 12, which I think is necessary because the Pac-12 is obviously imploding. Colorado right now, outside of USC and UCLA, is the largest asset as far as I'm concerned in the Pac-12, and we haven't even played a game yet. So imagine what will happen when we play a game. When we finally get to play TCU, when we finally get to play Nebraska, we will be the crown jewel of the Pac-12 for this season. And that's awesome. So I did a video. First, let me run down the folks that are in the chat real quick so that I can turn this down so that I can say thank you. So 5280 Freak, thank you very much. For those of you who don't know what 5280 is, that is, I'm assuming this is what you mean by this. That's the elevation of Denver. Nessa Mose is in the house. CJ, Patricia, I appreciate you guys very much. Q Dog's in the house. And pass me a beer. All right, man. Where am I? There you go. It's in my Buffs glass today. But, you know, we talked about Brett Yormark really early on. Like this was, I think, February or March. Had during the Big 12 basketball tournament, ended up turning it into like a nightclub and had DJs there and had a bunch of celebrities there. And, he said something about making the Big 12 sexy again, which was important because, a couple of years ago, there was a lot of people, including me, that thought the Big 12 was going to disassemble like the Pac-12 did, or like the Pac-12 is going to right now. And Brett Yormark came in on the heels of another really good, on the heels of the work that was done by the previous commissioner to kind of solidify things and then go into a building process, which he did. It just happened to culminate when Coach Prime came to Colorado and made it a perfect storm. Hey, Mac Mill, how you doing, man? And Mark D, I appreciate you guys coming in. But honestly, I feel like, there is nothing in life, or nothing I should say in business, that is going to be exceptional without great leadership. There's just nothing. You can have the best company in the world and you put bad leadership in and it's going to tank. You can take the worst company in the world and put great leadership in, and within a matter of a couple of years, you can have one of the best businesses in that industry. And that's why the really good business people get paid huge amounts of money, because they can come in, make a few small changes, get the marketing going, and move things forward. Coach Prime is one of those examples. Rick George is one of those examples, and both of those being obviously with Colorado. And so Brett Yormark comes into the Big 12 and turns it into a sexy conference. So I nicknamed it the Big Sexy, and I'm going to continue calling it that, because now I think with, the Big 12 is already a great basketball conference, if not probably the best basketball conference. It could be one of the best, if not the best football conferences by 2025. And obviously we're in the playoffs at that point, the new playoff system by 2024, 2025. So at that point, who knows what's going to happen? We could have 2 or 3 in the 2 or 3, the Big 12 could have 2 or 3 teams in that playoff. I mean, you never know. I mean, right now we've got Baylor and Texas Tech at 23 and 22 preseason, and then obviously TCU's at 17 preseason. Those teams don't look like they're going to get a whole lot weaker over the next couple of years. Colorado's not in that mix right now, but we all know that Colorado is doing great right now with their recruiting and their transfer portal, and we have a brand new team. And next year, when we start getting our commits that Coach Prime has got for us coming in the 2024-2025 cycle, it's going to be lights out. We're still going to have some of our other players as well from this season, and we're looking at a playoff run at that point. So Robert Morris, hey, how you doing? Rob J, Little Penny, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Vernon Sheldon Witter, thank you very much for joining. So at this point, obviously, we're going to get right into that. I wanted to ask you a question. So Rick George, during the Pac-12 Media Days, and by the way, everything with Colorado this year is different from any year in the past. So for instance, and I imagine that with a lot of you, how many of you in the live stream have watched the Pac-12 or really any conference media days as closely as you watch this one? Or did you watch any at all? I may have seen maybe one in my life, but how many of you are riveted to media days? Really? And here we are riveted to media days because we have all of our personalities went down to this thing. There was a big question hanging over the entire Pac-12 at that point of what are they going to do? How are they going to announce this media deal? And at that point, what were the schools going to do? Because we all thought, because they promised, that there would be news during the media days. And obviously there was no news. It was just, you guys aren't going to leave because it's going to be such a great deal. And of course, most of the schools, I think everybody at that point said, yeah, okay, we're in. You know, all of them are saying that, including Rick George and Todd Solomon. Yeah, we're in. We're in the Pac-12. We're here. And they were just days away from going to the Big 12. Basically, it was just I'm calling, this is the way I say it anyway. I'm calling your bluff. So yes, we're in, but I know you're not going to bring anything. And for those of you who are Office fans, anybody watch The Office out there? It's one of my family's favorite TV shows because there's so many correlations to real life business. It's kind of amazing. But, you know, it kind of reminded me of the whole Michael Scott thing where he said, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to have a big surprise. And then everybody was like, okay, we don't think you have a big surprise. And I think when it all came down to it, he didn't, and everybody left. And that's kind of what it was like. It just seemed like they kept hanging it over. Don't worry, it's coming. It's going to be a big surprise. You guys are going to be really impressed. You're not going to want to leave. It's going to be awesome. And Rick George and every other AD in the Pac-12 was basically at that point saying, yeah, I just don't know how you're going to pull a rabbit out of your hat when we don't know anything that's going on. And of course it didn't happen. So now we're going to, you know, we had a Board of Regents meeting just a minute ago, actually probably about a half an hour ago, and they voted unanimously to go to the Big 12. So now we are going to be part of the Big 12. And I guess there was one, Adam Munster Tiger said there was one regent that I don't want to say sounded concerned about it, but just wanted to make sure that if we're going to be making this move, that we're doing it for the right reasons. We're going to make the most of it. So at that point, that's kind of where we're at right now. And I want to go into a few other points, but first I want to get into the chat. So I'm going to start playing around with my chat. You guys know I'm not really good at this whole live stream thing, so I'm going to try to do the best I can. So CJ says, this is my first media day I watched because of Colorado, never watched them in the past. And I think that's the way most of them are. This may have been the most viewed Pac-12 media day maybe since Colorado joined back in the early 2010s. But I don't even think it was probably viewed by that many back then either. I don't even really remember it too much. But that is absolutely, I think, where most people are at. What's up, David Talks Buffs? What you got for me today? Throw me something. Let's see. Fedora Cufflinks. I've heard you say this before. Colorado belongs in the Big 12. I'm with you. Yeah, I grew up with Colorado in the old Big 8 conference. And there's not much left of that conference, obviously, but call it sentimental, whatever you want to. Let's see. Redeemed says, really happy with the move to the Big 12. I'd like to see Tulane added. So yeah, that's an interesting ad right there. I mean, obviously it would somewhat match kind of the academic level. And I want to say that Tulane academically is actually really similar to Colorado, now that I'm thinking about it. So as far as football is concerned, obviously they're on the up as far as that's concerned. Let's see what else. Little Penny, Texas is in the house. That's a good segue for coming in here, Little Penny. Yep. Let's see. We got welcome home, CU from Vernon. Mac Mill said, did you see Dylan push 525? I did not see that. That's amazing. I mean, that dude is not very big. That's pretty awesome. I'll be honest with you guys. I have been, for those of you who watch my videos regularly, I've been out in Colorado. We've been out of the loop for the summer, trying to take advantage of every minute we have before kids go back to school. And then at that point, I knuckle back down and just in time for fall camp, and we start getting back into a whole bunch of more stuff. But I couldn't pass this up because I've been saying it for a really long time about moving to the Big 12, and I wanted to at least take the opportunity to discuss it. Max squat of 525. That's pretty amazing. That is Coach Mo at his best. You see Jimmy. I've seen Jimmy Horn twice in the past 2 months. One was at a Ford event, and then one was at an event earlier this week for Darian Hagan's charity, which I did a video on as well. And he was there supporting that. So not only was he in the crowd for it, but also he was on the court playing with the kids, kind of creating a good atmosphere for the event. And that guy, he's not much bigger than me from a stature standpoint, but the dude is just freaking ripped. And I think he could toss me around that court pretty good. So Robert Morris asks, Chris, what do you think, or do you think the ultimate goal is to go to the B1G? I don't know. I mean, I would say personally, no. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think we'll go to a 2-conference system before we do that. Would I like to go to the Big Ten? Sure. I mean, I would love to go to the Big Ten. The Big Ten, I think, is, a lot of people say the Big Ten is probably one of the best matched conferences from a academic standpoint. Obviously, we're kind of in that same, I don't want to say north. We're not really north, but, cold weather schools, that kind of thing. We're kind of in that same kind of zone as far as that's concerned. And I like Big Ten schools. I love Big Ten schools. I was a Michigan fan and still am a Michigan fan as well. And for those of you who've watched before, I'm going to come out and say it. I'm a fan of college football. I have a lot of teams that I watch regularly since I was a kid. I've got so much Michigan merchandise in my closet. It's a little bit embarrassing. Same with Notre Dame. Obviously, most of my college football gear is Colorado, but I would say there's a really healthy dose of OU in there as well. So, but yeah, I think Big Ten is definitely something that would bode well for us, but I just don't think that's in the cards, at least for long enough to matter, for that matter. David Talks Buff says Big 12 has an entrepreneurial startup feel to it. Excited to see where it goes. That's funny that you say that, David. That's how I felt back in March when they were at the Big 12 basketball tournament, and they had the DJs there, and you saw I think they even had like a party atmosphere under the stadium. I can't even remember what that whole thing is. It was like a bunch of celebrities came and hung out with the athletes, and it made it a very like a really hot place to be. And they were talking about how good it was for potential recruiting for basketball for the Big 12 going forward, was that one tournament. And so when you're saying entrepreneurial, that's exactly what I was thinking. Was you take an old product and you shine it up, change the parts on it a little bit, and then push it out there in a marketing aspect to where you're taking a lot of opportunity to really screw it up, but then it turns out to be genius. And then all of a sudden, like that overnight, the Big 12 becomes one of the sexiest conferences in the country and is able to pull a CU that is completely renovated with the hottest coach in college football right now from the standpoint of marketing is concerned, and the most anticipated team going into this season. I don't know that there's another team that there's as much anticipation to see what's going to happen, right? Everybody else is, we know they're going to be good or we know they're going to be bad. But for the University of Colorado, when you're talking about outsiders looking at us, there nobody knows. I mean, we could be the best team in college football, and we could, what some people would say would not be successful, which would be 3 or 4 wins. So that said, that anticipation equals dollars. Anytime you can create that much of an atmosphere around the anticipation of a game, the anticipation of a product release, you're instantly going to get views. You're instantly going to get merch sales. You're instantly going to get social media clicks. And that's where we're at right now. Rock says the whole world is watching. And that is right. More than any other college right now, there's no one watching another team like they're watching Colorado. So let's look and see what Sean says. Sean says, I'm a Buffs fan, but still have a sentimental fondness for Michigan from years ago. Yeah, I think we're all there. I mean, I think everybody at some point, one of the reasons you either watch a college football team, and I'm just talking about college football right now, but let's just say college athletics, because of proximity, because you're close, because you went to the school, because your parents are fans of that, you grew up in that household, or it's because they got really good or something happened with the university during that time frame, and everybody jumped to them, I'm going to say, on the bandwagon and stayed. And Michigan was like that in the early 90s. Michigan was an it school in the early 90s, and along with Colorado. And a lot of people migrated to that university from a football standpoint and stayed there. Same with, they had a magical run also in college basketball at that time too. So, Michigan, go figure, even though they're without a coach now for 4 games. All right. So let's go and look at, what do you guys think which team is going to be next? Because right now, the way it sits, next year, there are going to be 13 teams in the Big 12. So it's going to be the Big 13, which is really cool to think about, that there's going to be 13 teams. Like it's a really lucky number for a lot of people. And I think we're going to have to even it out. So who's going to be next? Oregon State? That's what I think too. I think it's going to be Oregon State. But, it's funny that now we're talking about everybody wants to be on go and watch media days. Everybody wants to look at recruiting that didn't look at recruiting before. Everybody wants to look at the transfer portal who had never even heard of the transfer portal before. And now everybody wants to be on a Regents live stream that didn't even know that Regents did live streams. So, and I'm one of them too. So today I was on the Oregon live stream that they did at, what time was it? It was at 11 o'clock in Colorado, thinking that Oregon may, vote to go to the Big 12 or to the B1G. And of course it didn't happen, but they did talk about the fact that their coach just got an extension and a money raise. So now he's making a couple million more than Coach Prime. And, you can talk about whether or not you think that is acceptable. Maybe. Is that acceptable? I don't know if it's acceptable. But, Dan Lanning has a really good track record in football. He was with Georgia during some really good years. And obviously he's been doing good at Oregon as well. So obviously the school did not want to lose him. And so they signed him to an extra year, which is 6 years. And they sent him $7 million a year plus a $1 million bonus structure. And his buyout's like $15 million. So he's going to be there for a little while. Hey, what's up? Will H. Arizona basketball. Yes, I think so too. Arizona could be it. I originally thought Arizona was going to be the one to jump. Arizona seems to be a partner with Colorado from that standpoint, but I think they at Pac-12 media days they were not budging from the fact that they were going to wait for a media deal. But man, if we could get Arizona into the Big 12 with Kansas and everybody else for basketball, man, we would go from probably one of the best conferences to the best conference in college basketball. So does anybody think Washington is the team that might come? Because there's been a lot of people talking about Washington lately. I haven't seen any media on it, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it. So another thing to think about is, what is the Pac losing out of this whole thing? So we already know that they're losing USC and UCLA, but by losing Colorado, is that a bigger loss than USC is this year? Considering the fact that we all know, since we are all Bus fans, we have the most insight to our team of any college football team in the history of college football, with all of the channels that are doing content out of Colorado now. And with all of us, like me and David Talks Buffs and everybody else that's out there doing interviews with the players and showing kind of the inside of the program, we now have insight into the fact that we are going to be better this year than what most people think. And we are going to be, I think, a bigger loss than USC is next year. I honestly think we're going to be a bigger loss than USC is. David Talks Buff says both Oregon and Washington lose leverage with the B1G. Now that CU has destabilized the Pac further, they might get more money as a full member in the Big 12 than a partial payout from the Big 1G. I agree. I agree with that statement. A lot of people have said that those two were never really, even though people talked about them going to the B1G, were never really truly considered for going there. So coming to the Big 12 might be a better way to go. They lose money. Mac Mill says they lose money because Prime is gone. Yes, I totally agree with that. Right now, we are the biggest asset outside of USC. I think maybe we are the biggest asset for the Pac-12. And next year, I think we are going to be the biggest asset for the Big 12 as well, because we are going to have Coach Prime. And by next season, we show what we're going to do. And we become, a very all of the media hype that's been coming towards us has been, what am I going to say, authenticated. Next year, that is going to be, we're going to be a huge asset for the Big 12. And then I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about is, what does CU bring to the Big 12 other than the fact that I think we're going to be the biggest asset? I mean, what rivalries do you like in the Big 12 now? Let's talk about that. Who's got a rivalry that they're looking forward to? Maybe like, let's see, Kansas State. I mean, that's only like a few hour drive from here. And Kansas State, they're good and they're horrible, and then they're good and then they're horrible. So what do you think about Kansas State? What do you think about Cincinnati? Cincinnati, I think, is going to be a sleeper in this program right here. And the city is outstanding. So if we end up traveling, let's say year one, we travel to Cincinnati and it's an away game, I'm going to that game. If you guys haven't been to Cincinnati before, you need to take a trip there. You wouldn't think it if you hadn't been there. I went to Kansas State. I went to Cincinnati kicking and screaming with a previous job that I had a couple of decades ago. And I got there, and before we even drove into the city at night, it's kind of down in a bowl right on the Ohio River, and you can see lights for days. It's almost like being in Colorado and coming over the hill from I-70 into Denver. And we fell in love with it instantly. And for 2 years, we couldn't get enough, and we didn't want to leave. And remember, we're mountain people. So that says a lot. That's how cool that city is. And I really like their football program, especially lately. I really like the football program. So I think that might be a good one. TCU, I think this year, actually, I think last year is the year that started that TCU rivalry, because for a brief moment, we were going to win that game. And then it got away from us. This year, there's even more hype surrounding this game. And it's a winner take all kind of situation in that. I think we survive it. If for some reason the dice don't roll our way for TCU, it's not over for us. We know going into this game, we're like ranked. If you were to look at our rankings, we're going to be in the high 30s, maybe something like that. We were in the high 60s at one point, but the point is that we're playing a number 17 team. If these rankings in preseason hold, we're going to be playing a number 17 team. And if we lose to a number 17 team by, I don't know, a field goal or by a point or something like that, I think it instantly gives us credibility. And we go into Nebraska, beat Nebraska at home. I think we're fine. There's absolutely no problem with a 1-1 team that almost beat the number 17 team and beat Nebraska, newly rebuilt Nebraska at home. Now, I don't think we're going to lose the TCU game. And it isn't because I'm a Bus fan, and it isn't because, we have Coach Prime. I think it's just the way that TCU has gone through some changes and the momentum that we have right now. I think we have an opportunity to win that game. And if we win the TCU game, it's lights out. I think we're instantly ranked. We're going to be number 24, 25 in the country, depending on how the rest of that top 25 does. And I think we're going to be in good situation. So let's see what we got here. Let's go to Mac. Mac says, I think people forget in 2020 and 2021, TCU was kicking teams' butt before COVID. Yeah, that's true. I mean, this isn't TCU is not an overnight success. They've been doing this for a little while. Let's see what David says. Cincinnati reportedly went after Prime. TCU reportedly pressed on Prime. Both could be great rivals. Yeah, I've heard that too. It's interesting if you run down that rabbit hole of the recruiting of Coach Prime before we got him. It was really kind of quiet. I didn't really see a lot of stuff out there until Colorado came in the mix. And then all of a sudden it started to blow up. Let's see. Cincinnati, nice town. They love sports. That's true. That is true. So Tanisha says Cincinnati loves sports, and having lived there for 2 years, I 100% agree with that. They are 100% behind their teams. All the Texas teams, Little Penny says. And the reason why Little Penny says that is because Little Penny is a Texas. He is from Texas. How far is Oklahoma State? Oklahoma State is a 9-hour drive it's a 10-hour drive. Well, no, it's a 9-hour drive from Boulder. So it's not that far. It's straight across I-70, right down I-35, and you run right into Stillwater. And Stillwater is a football town. If you guys haven't been there, it is 100% a football town. And, with Mike Gundy out there and all the success they've had in the past, they're always going to be a big school to go against. David Talks Buff says BYU. I agree with that. BYU could be a really good team for us to play, and it's not that far. It's kind of a far drive from here, but the flight's pretty quick. But BYU is a good school for us to play, and they're not always great, but when they're good, they're really good. Let's see. Who else do we have here? David Swenson says Utah to the Big 10 or Utah to the Big 12. Wait. Did I read that right? Let me get that right. David, what did you say? Utah to the Big 10 is what he says. Well, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that. Maybe I'm just missing something. All right, let's see. Colorado has to compete with Cali, Oregon, and Washington for the best green. No, we are only a state conference with legal green, right? Yeah, exactly, David. All right, guys. So I just wanted to talk about this for a little bit. Rick George's poker face during that Pac-12 media days. When I saw that, and I'm going to say this one more time. Going back a few months ago, I did quite a few videos on going to the Big 12. And a lot of it was based on a rumor came out and everybody was talking about it. So, of course, I'm going to talk about it too. But the more I looked at the Pac-12 and what's going to be left of it if all of these small parts are truly being picked away, the more I saw the Mountain West merging And the Mountain West, as far as I'm concerned, merging with the Pac-12, I don't know that that's going to do anything for the Pac-12. There are a few Mountain West schools that I like. I like Boise State. But at that point, the rest of them, not really a huge fan of from the standpoint of making a better conference for us. So the fact that we were even still considering it was because it's just like business. I mean, when you're in a business deal and you want to see all of your options before you make a decision, you want to stay where you're at and keep saying, we trust you, we have faith, we're here, and our product is better, and we have a lot of other things going for us, so that these media rights, these media companies that are looking at the Pac-12 are going to say, okay, if Coach Prime and CU are going to stay in the Pac-12, then we're going to make a better deal because we want to secure this and we want to have Coach Prime on TV as much as possible, because it's obviously we want to make the stations more money. It's going to make their media outlets more money. But I think the media, everybody in the media that's involved in these media rights, saw that Colorado was hesitant, Utah was hesitant. There's a few other schools that were hesitant, and they don't want to come out with a media rights deal and then have the other schools just flee. So, and then now they've lost their opportunity with Colorado. So at this point, you hold back, you wait for Colorado to make a move, and then at that point, the media rights deal comes together, and it's obviously not going to be as good while we're gone. And I think that's what's happening right now. So now we're leaving, going to the Big 12. We know what our bag is. It's what, 31.5 or something like that. Plus there's a whole lot of other bonuses for being part of the Big 12. And we're better off for it. So in 1 year, folks, in 1 year, last year, David, I know you're with me on this. Last year, let's say mid-October. Good Lord. I don't know that there's any possible way that we would have guessed that before the season started in the next year, we would be talking about a completely different everything. Everything is different. Coaching is different. Players are different. Our conference for the season after this one is different. It's like a brand new, we got a brand new car. It kind of looks the same as the old car. And I'm saying that because I'm in a garage and I restore cars. But somehow the AD took the car, put a massively huge engine in it, new tires, new everything, even a new paint job. I mean, we have new unis this year, new helmets. I mean, everything about this car now drives different than it did before. And it feels like we're not even driving the same car. And all of this was in one season. And so I wanted to end this by saying, congratulations to the University of Colorado. Congratulations to Rick George. Congratulations to Todd Solomon, president of CU. I think this was a great move. I think that you have literally resurrected Colorado from a grave. And as a CU Bus fan, I'm going to be at every game this year, out there waving the flag, wearing the colors, doing everything I can to try to, with this channel and everything else, to try to help drive that momentum and celebrate all of these wins that we've had. And I want to appreciate everybody here for joining in today. Again, impromptu live stream. I still haven't figured it out. I have way too much going on to kind of mess with this. But after I get off of this, I'm going to get a background going and stuff like that. Maybe David can help me because he's pretty good at this stuff. And then we'll be back with another video here pretty quick. So thanks for hanging out with me. If you haven't already heard, we coming to the Big 12. Yeah.